The stars looked different from here. Captain Daeho Kim stood at the window of his ship, watching the massive crystal station grow larger as they approached. It had been 3 months since Earth received the invitation. 3 months of preparation, debates, and sleepless nights. Now they were finally here at the edge of Veltaran space. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," Ji-won said from her console. She was young, only 26, but her mind was sharp. Daeho trusted her completely. "Follow them exactly," Daeho replied. "We can't afford any mistakes." Tae-sung stood near the door, his hand resting casually near his weapon. The security officer never truly relaxed, but Daeho appreciated that about him. Someone needed to worry about the practical dangers while Daeho focused on the diplomatic ones. The year was 2287, and humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition only 5 years ago. They were the newest members, the youngest species, and many older civilizations looked down on them. Humans were primitive in their eyes, aggressive, unpredictable. Every human diplomat carried the weight of their entire species on their shoulders. But this mission was different. This was about the Veltarans. Daeho had studied everything available about them. The Veltaran Empire controlled 7 star systems. Their biotechnology was centuries ahead of anyone else. They had ships that could heal themselves, weapons grown rather than built, and medical science that seemed like magic. Yet they refused to share it. They refused to trade. They refused almost every diplomatic contact for 300 years. Until now. Queen Ithara Velshan had personally invited Earth to send a representative. Not the powerful Altheran Federation. Not the wealthy Synthesis Collective. Earth. The invitation had caused chaos in the coalition. Some species were angry. Others were suspicious. A few were openly afraid. Why us? Ji-won had asked during the journey. Why would she choose humans? Daeho had wondered the same thing. He still didn't know the answer. The docking process was smooth. Veltaran technology interfaced seamlessly with their human ship. Within minutes, they were secured to the station. Daeho took a deep breath and looked at his small team. "Remember," he said quietly, "we're not here to intimidate or impress. We're here to listen and learn." The Queen agreed to meet us for a reason. Our job is to understand what that reason is. Ji-won nodded. Tae-sung checked his weapon one last time, then left it in the ship. Weapons were forbidden in the Queen's presence. It was a rule every species followed, no exceptions. They stepped through the airlock into a corridor unlike anything Daeho had ever seen. The walls were alive, pulsing gently with bioluminescent light. The floor felt soft but firm, like walking on something organic. Everything curved and flowed. There were no hard edges anywhere. A Veltaran waited for them. He was tall, nearly 7 feet, with dark chitinous plates covering his body. His face was asymmetrical, one eye larger than the other. Patterns of light flickered across his skin. "I am Velkan," he said through a translation device attached to his chest. "I will guide you to the throne chamber. You will follow me and speak to no one else." "Understood," Daeho replied. They walked through the station in silence. Other species were present. Daeho recognized ambassadors from a dozen different civilizations. They stared at the humans with various expressions. Curiosity, contempt, fear. No one spoke to them. The throne chamber doors were massive, at least 20 feet tall. They opened silently, revealing a space that took Daeho's breath away. The chamber was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to disappear into darkness. Hundreds of beings filled the space, representatives from across the galaxy. They all stood in a circle around a central platform. On that platform was a throne, and on that throne sat Queen Ithara. Daeho had seen pictures, but they hadn't prepared him. The queen was huge, at least 8 feet tall even while sitting. Her body was covered in thick chitinous plates that looked almost like armor. But unlike the symmetrical beauty most species prized, her features were irregular. One side of her face bore deep scars, ritual markings that cut across her skin. Her 4 eyes were different sizes and colors. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across her body, but they flickered irregularly, not in the smooth waves he'd seen on other Veltarans. By galactic standards, she was considered ugly. Daeho had read the reports. Other species found Veltarans disturbing to look at. The Altherans called them the grotesque ones. The Synthesis Collective refused face-to-face meetings without concealment fields. Even species that claimed to value diversity often looked away. "Captain Daeho Kim of Earth," Velkan announced. "You will approach alone. Ji-won and Tae-sung stopped at the chamber entrance. Dae-ho walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every eye in the chamber was on him. He could feel the weight of their attention, their curiosity, their judgment. He stopped at the base of the platform and looked up at Queen Ithara. She leaned forward slightly, studying him with those four mismatched eyes. The bioluminescence on her skin pulsed faster. Dae-ho had learned that meant emotional agitation. "So?" the Queen said, her voice deep and resonant even through translation. "Humanity sends me a diplomat. I have heard your species values honesty above all else. Is this true?" "We try to, Your Majesty," Dae-ho replied carefully. "Good." The Queen rose from her throne. She was even more imposing standing up. "Then I will be honest with you, and you will be honest with me. I want to know what you see when you look at me." The chamber became deathly quiet. Dae-ho heard someone gasp softly. This was a test, clearly. But what kind? Was she asking him to lie? To flatter her? Or was she genuinely asking for truth? "Your species has eyes similar to the Altharans," Queen Ithara continued. She descended the steps slowly, each movement precise and controlled. "The Altharans call my people the grotesque ones. The Synthesis Collective refuses to meet with us unless we wear concealment fields to hide our appearance. Even the generous Plenari turn their gaze away when they see us." She stopped just a few feet from Dae-ho. Up close, he could see every detail. The scars that cut across her face, the way her chitinous plates didn't quite match, the irregular pulse of light beneath her skin. She was studying him just as carefully, watching for his reaction. "I ask you directly, Captain," she said quietly. "What do you see when you look upon me? Do not lie. Do not flatter. Tell me what you truly see." Dae-ho could feel hundreds of beings watching him. One wrong word could destroy humanity's reputation. One moment of visible disgust could end Earth's hopes of good relations with the Velterran Empire. His next words would matter more than anything he'd ever said in his life. He looked at Queen Ithara, really looked at her, and then he spoke. Dae-ho took his time. He didn't rush to answer. Instead, he studied Queen Ithara carefully, respectfully. He looked at the scars on her face, the asymmetry of her features, the way the bioluminescent patterns moved beneath her skin. He considered his words carefully, knowing that honesty didn't mean cruelty. "Your Majesty," he finally said, "I see someone who carries tremendous responsibility. I see scars that tell a story of sacrifice. In my culture, we honor such marks. They show that you have given something of yourself for your people." The Queen's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. She said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "I see a symmetry," Dae-ho went on, "which tells me your species evolved prioritizing function over form. That means your ancestors were survivors. They were practical. They chose what worked rather than what looked pleasing. That's not ugly. That's honest." He gestured to the patterns of light pulsing across her skin. "I see bioluminescence that changes with your emotions. I don't yet understand what each pattern means, but I find it fascinating. On Earth, we have creatures that produce light, but nothing so complex. It must communicate so much more than words ever could." The chamber remained absolutely silent. Dae-ho could hear his own heartbeat. He took a breath and spoke his final thought. "Your Majesty, on my world we have a saying. True beauty reveals itself slowly, to those patient enough to look beyond first glances. If you believe yourself ugly, then I can only think you've been surrounded by people who never learned patience. People who judge a book by looking only at its cover, never reading what's inside." For a long moment, nothing happened. The Queen stood perfectly still, her four eyes fixed on Dae-ho. Then her bioluminescence began to pulse in a pattern he'd never seen before. The lights flickered wildly, like a storm moving beneath her skin. One of the Veltaran advisors near the throne took a step forward, concerned. But the Queen raised one hand, stopping him. "You speak differently than others," she said, her voice softer now, almost uncertain. "Why? What makes you see differently?" Dae-ho had prepared for many questions, but not this one. Not the vulnerability he heard in her voice. He decided to answer with equal honesty. "I grew up in a refugee camp, Your Majesty," he said. "Climate disasters destroyed my home when I was 7 years old. For 5 years, I lived in a place where thousands of people from different backgrounds were forced together. We all looked different. We all spoke different languages. We all had different customs." He paused, remembering those difficult years. At first, people stayed with their own groups. They feared what was different. But slowly, out of necessity, we learned to work together. We learned that the person who looked most different from you might be the one who saves your life. The person who spoke a strange language might share their food when you were hungry. Appearance meant nothing. Character meant everything. And this taught you to see past appearance? The Queen asked. It taught me that appearance is just the beginning, Deho replied. It's the first page of a book, nothing more. If I judge someone only by how they look, I miss everything important. I miss their kindness, their courage, their wisdom. I miss the chance to learn from them. Queen Ithra was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the chamber. She turned to her advisors and spoke in her own language. The translation devices caught it a moment later. Clear the chamber. I wish to speak with the human alone. There was immediate protest. A dozen advisors began talking at once, their bioluminescence flashing in agitation. But the Queen silenced them with a single look. I am your queen, she said firmly. Clear the chamber. Now. It took 10 minutes for everyone to leave. The other species ambassadors filed out reluctantly, casting confused glances back at Deho. Jiwan caught his eye from the entrance, concerned, but Deho gave her a small nod. Trust me. Finally, only Deho and Queen Ithara remained in the enormous chamber. The silence was almost overwhelming. The Queen sat down on the steps of her throne platform, not on the throne itself. The gesture made her seem more approachable, less like an untouchable ruler. She gestured for Deho to sit as well. I need to tell you something, she said. Something that very few beings know. Your honesty deserves honesty in return. Deho sat carefully on the step, keeping a respectful distance. I was not born to rule, Queen Ithra began. I was a military commander. 30 years ago, my people were destroying themselves in a civil war. Billions died. Our empire was collapsing. Someone needed to end it, so I did. I challenged every faction leader to single combat. I won every battle. And when the war ended, the people demanded I take the throne. Her hand moved to the scars on her face. These marks are not from war. They are from the ritual of ascension. To become queen, I had to prove my dedication, so I carved these symbols into my own face. I made myself bear visible proof of sacrifice so my people would never forget what leadership costs. Deho felt a chill run through him, the pain that must have required, the strength. The other species do not know this, the Queen continued. They see an ugly monster who rules through fear. They do not know I chose these scars. They do not know I ended a war that nearly destroyed us. They do not know I gave up everything, including any chance of being seen as beautiful for peace. Your Majesty, Deho said quietly, they should know. That story is remarkable. Is it? The Queen's bioluminescence dimmed. Or is it just the desperate act of someone who had no other choice? Sometimes I wonder if I made the right decisions. My people are safe now. We are strong. But we are alone. No other species truly accepts us. They see our appearance and they judge us without knowing anything about who we are. Deho thought about his own world's history. The wars, the prejudices, the countless times humans had judged each other based on nothing but appearance or origin. Your Majesty, Earth has a painful history, he said. We fought wars over the color of skin, over which god people prayed to, over which piece of land they were born on. Millions died because of these stupid prejudices. My generation grew up learning about these mistakes. We learned that judging by appearance alone is not just wrong, it's foolish. It causes nothing but suffering. He met her 4 eyes directly. You asked why I see differently. It's because my species paid a terrible price to learn how to see clearly. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we understood that diversity is strength, not weakness, that what makes someone different might be exactly what makes them valuable. Queen Ithara's bioluminescence began to pulse in a new pattern, slower and more rhythmic. Deho had learned enough to recognize this meant deep thought. I invited you here for a reason, she finally said. I have heard stories about humans, about how your species values compassion, about how you help others even when there is no benefit to you. I wanted to see if these stories were true or just propaganda. And what do you think now? Deho asked. The Queen stood and Deho quickly rose as well. She looked down at him with those strange asymmetrical eyes. Then she made a decision that would change everything. I think you should stay, she said. Not just for one meeting. I want you to remain on Veltara Prime as my guest for 1 lunar cycle. 3 of your weeks. I want to understand humans better. Specifically, I want to understand you better. Daiho was stunned. This was beyond anything he'd hoped for. "Your Majesty, I would be honored," he managed to say. "Good." The Queen's bioluminescence brightened. "Perhaps it is time my people learn to trust again. And perhaps you can teach us how." The first week on Veltara Prime changed everything Daiho thought he knew about the universe. The planet itself was stunning. Cities grew rather than being built, with living structures that responded to the needs of their inhabitants, trees that produced light at night, rivers that cleaned themselves. Technology and nature existed as one thing, not two separate concepts. Queen Ithara personally showed them around, something that shocked her advisors. Queens did not give tours. Queens did not spend hours explaining their culture to outsiders. But Ithara insisted, and no one could refuse her. "This is the Hall of Memory," she said, leading them into a building that seemed to breathe. The walls pulsed gently with bioluminescence. "We record our history here, not in books or computers, but in living tissue. Every important event is preserved in biological memory storage." Jiwon was fascinated. She spent hours with Veltaran scientists, learning about their biotechnology. Taesung, meanwhile, found common ground with Veltaran warriors. Despite language and appearance barriers, soldiers understood each other. They shared stories, traded techniques, and built respect through shared experience. But it was Daiho's growing friendship with Queen Ithara that truly mattered. They spent evenings in the Crystal Gardens, a place where bioluminescent plants grew in impossible beauty. The plants responded to emotion, changing colors based on the feelings of those nearby. When Ithara was calm, they glowed soft blue. When she was thoughtful, they shifted to purple. When she laughed, which happened more and more often, they sparkled with gold. "I have not laughed this much in years," Ithara admitted one evening. They sat on a living bench that adjusted itself for comfort. "Being queen is lonely. Everyone fears me or wants something from me. No one simply talks with me." "What about your advisors?" Daiho asked. "They serve me loyally, but they do not understand me." Ithara's bioluminescence dimmed slightly. "They see the queen. They do not see the person who sometimes doubts, who sometimes feels tired, who sometimes wishes she could be ordinary." Daiho nodded. He understood loneliness. "On Earth, we had a leader once who said that heavy is the head that wears the crown. Power isolates. The higher you rise, the fewer people you can truly trust." "Yes," Ithara said quietly. "Exactly that. Do you know what my people call me? Ithara the Unbreakable. Ithara the Iron Queen. They think I feel no pain, no doubt, no fear. But I feel all of it. I just cannot show it." "Why not?" Daiho asked gently. "Because if I show weakness, someone will try to take my throne. Because my people need to believe I am strong enough to protect them. Because the moment I admit vulnerability, everything I built could crumble." Daiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Your Majesty, can I tell you about my grandmother?" Ithara's upper eyes tilted slightly, a gesture of curiosity. "She survived the Great Famine," Daiho continued. "She lost her husband, her home, and 2 of her 3 children. But she kept going. She raised my father alone. And you know what she told me before she died? She said the strongest thing she ever did was admit when she needed help. She said pretending to be strong when you're breaking inside doesn't make you brave. It just makes you alone." The crystal plants around them pulsed with deep purple, responding to Ithara's emotional state. "You think I should show vulnerability?" she asked. "I think you're already strong," Daiho replied. "Everyone knows that. Maybe what they need to see is that you're also real. That you're not just an Iron Queen, but a person who cares deeply about her people. That's not weakness. That's humanity." Ithara made a sound that was almost like a laugh. "Humanity. Interesting choice of words." "You know what I mean," Daiho smiled. Over the following days, Ithara began to open up more. She showed Daiho parts of the palace she'd never shown anyone. Her private library, filled with texts from 100 different worlds. Her meditation chamber where she went when the weight of rule became too heavy. Her collection of simple stones gathered from every planet in her empire. Reminders that even queens could appreciate small, ordinary beauty. In return, Daiho shared human culture. He played music from Earth, particularly traditional Korean songs. Ithara was fascinated by the emotion in the music, how human voices could convey such depth of feeling. "We have music," she said, "but it is different. More focused on rhythm and pattern. Your music is about feeling. It is raw and honest in a way that unsettles me, but I cannot stop listening. That's because the best art makes us feel something real. Deho explained. It connects us to each other. It reminds us that we're not alone in our emotions. One evening, as they sat in the crystal gardens watching the triple moons rise, Ithara asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her mind. Deho, why did you really come here? What does Earth want from the Veltaran Empire? Deho had been expecting this question. He answered honestly. Earth wants many things. Trade, knowledge, allies. But I came here for a different reason. I came because I believe the galaxy is better when different peoples work together. I believe isolation makes us weak, not strong. And I believe you understand that too, or you wouldn't have invited us. Ithara's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly. You are right. I am tired of isolation. I am tired of my people being judged by appearance. I am tired of being alone. But change is difficult. Many of my advisors oppose opening our borders. They fear other species will take advantage of us. Some might try, Deho admitted, but most won't. Most species are just trying to survive, just like yours. They're looking for friends, not enemies. They're hoping to find common ground. And if I am wrong? Ithara asked quietly. If I open my empire and it destroys us? Then you will face it with courage, just like you faced the Civil War, Deho said. But I don't think you're wrong. I think you're ready for this. Your people are ready for this. The galaxy needs what you have to offer. The crystal plants around them suddenly blazed with bright gold. Ithara's bioluminescence matched them. Pulsing with emotion Deho had learned to recognize as hope. But not everyone was happy about this growing friendship. In the shadows of the palace, Veltaran noble Kyungmi watched with growing concern. She had served in Ithara's government for years, but she disagreed strongly with this new direction. Opening the empire to outsiders, especially to humans, was dangerous. It risked everything their people had built. She sent a carefully coded message to an old contact, Ambassador Hyun Woo of the Coalition Central Council. He responded immediately, agreeing to a secret meeting. Meanwhile, a Veltaran scholar named Sua had noticed something troubling. She had been researching coalition trade agreements and found irregularities, money moving through strange channels, communications being intercepted. Someone was planning something, and it involved both humans and Veltarans. Sua debated what to do. Speaking against Kyungmi was dangerous. The noble had powerful friends, but if Sua said nothing and something bad happened, she would never forgive herself. One evening, she approached Deho as he walked through the palace gardens alone. Captain Kim, she said quietly, I need to speak with you. In private. It is urgent. Deho saw the fear in her bioluminescent patterns. Something was very wrong. Of course, Emi said. Lead the way. They went to a small chamber far from the main palace. Sua checked carefully to make sure they were alone, then spoke rapidly. There is a conspiracy, she said. Elements within our government and within the Coalition Council oppose the Queen's friendship with humanity. They are planning something. I do not know exactly what, but I have seen communications, financial transfers, and meeting records that should not exist. Deho felt ice in his stomach. Do you have proof? Some, Sua said. She handed him a data crystal. This is everything I could copy safely. It is not complete, but it is enough to show that something wrong is happening. I bring this to you because I believe you truly care about the Queen. Please protect her. Why not go to her directly? Deho asked. Because I do not know who to trust in the palace, Sua replied. Kyungmi has allies everywhere. If I went to the Queen and the wrong person found out, I would disappear. But you are an outsider. You can move more freely. You can investigate without drawing suspicion. Deho took the crystal. Thank you for trusting me. I promise I'll look into this. That night, Deho, Jiwon, and Taesung reviewed the data. What they found made them all deeply worried. Someone was planning to destroy the growing friendship between Earth and the Veltaran Empire, and they were planning to do it soon. The grand ceremony was supposed to be a celebration. Queen Ithara had announced she would make an important declaration about the future of Veltaran foreign relations. Everyone knew what that meant. She was going to announce formal alliance talks with humanity. Representatives from every major species in the coalition had gathered for the occasion. Deho stood with Jiwon and Taesung near the platform. He had tried to warn Ithara about the conspiracy, but she had insisted the ceremony proceed as planned. If there are those who plot against progress, she had said, we will face them openly. I will not hide in fear. The ceremony chamber was filled with thousands of beings. Cameras from 100 worlds recorded everything. This moment would be broadcast across the entire galaxy. Queen Ithara stood at the center of the platform, magnificent in her formal armor. Her bioluminescence pulsed with confidence and strength. She began to speak, her words translated into countless languages. "Today marks a new beginning for the Veltaran Empire," she said. "For 300 years we have stood alone. We have isolated ourselves, believing that distance would keep us safe. But isolation has not brought us peace. It has brought us loneliness." The crowd listened in absolute silence. "I have met with representatives of humanity," Ithara continued. "I have learned about their culture, their values, and their vision for the galaxy. I have found in them something I did not expect to find. I have found understanding. I have found respect. I have found friendship." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Therefore, I am pleased to announce that the Veltaran Empire will begin formal alliance negotiations with Earth. We will share knowledge. We will engage in trade. We will build a future together." That's when it happened. Ambassador Hyunwoo stepped forward, his face grim. Behind him came a dozen coalition officials, all carrying data pads. "Your Majesty," Hyunwoo said loudly, "I must object. I have evidence that must be presented before any such alliance can proceed." Ithara's bioluminescence flickered with surprise and annoyance. "What evidence?" "Evidence that humanity has been stealing Veltaran biotechnology," Hyunwoo declared. His words echoed through the chamber. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Documents that appeared to show human scientists accessing Veltaran research databases. Communications that suggested Earth had been planning industrial espionage all along. Video footage that seemed to show human ships leaving Veltaran space with stolen biological samples. Daeho felt his blood turn to ice. The evidence looked convincing. Too convincing. "This is a lie," he shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Species representatives were standing, arguing, pointing. Some demanded explanations. Others called for immediate sanctions against Earth. Kyung-mi, standing near the throne, spoke up loudly. "Your Majesty, this is what comes from trusting outsiders. I warned you. We all warned you. But you refused to listen. You let your emotions cloud your judgment." Other Veltaran nobles joined in. "The human has manipulated you, my queen. He has used soft words to distract you while his people stole from us." Ithara stood frozen, her bioluminescence flickering wildly between different patterns. Confusion, anger, hurt. She looked at Daeho, and for the first time since they met, he saw doubt in her eyes. "Captain Daeho," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Explain this." Daeho stepped forward, his mind racing. "Your Majesty, this evidence is fabricated. Someone has gone to great lengths to create false documents and fake footage. This is exactly what Sua warned us about." "Convenient," Hyunwoo sneered. "Of course you claim it's fake. What else would you say?" "Your Majesty, I have verified this evidence myself. It came from Coalition Intelligence Services. It is real. Let me investigate," Daeho pleaded. "Give me 48 hours. I can prove this is a conspiracy." Kyung-mi laughed bitterly. "More delays. More manipulation. Your Majesty, you must act now. Sever ties with humanity. Expel them from our space. Show the galaxy that the Veltaran Empire will not be made fools of." The crowd roared with mixed reactions. Some species supported Kyung-mi. Others called for patience. The chamber descended into chaos. Ithara raised her hand and slowly the noise subsided. When she spoke, her voice was cold, formal. Nothing like the warm tone Daeho had grown used to. "This session is suspended. Captain Daeho, you will confine yourself and your team to your quarters. You will not leave until we have determined the truth of these accusations. Ambassador Hyunwoo, you will provide all evidence to my investigators." "Your Majesty," Daeho started, but she cut him off. "That is all, Captain. Guards, escort the humans to their quarters." As Veltaran guards surrounded them, Daeho caught Ithara's eyes one last time. He saw pain there, betrayal. She had trusted him, opened herself to friendship, and now it seemed he had used her all along. Back in their quarters, Ji-won paced frantically. "This is a disaster. Even if we prove the evidence is fake, the damage is done. Half the galaxy watched that broadcast. They all think we're thieves." "We have 48 hours, Taesung said grimly. "We need to use them." "But we're confined," Ji-won protested. "How can we investigate from here?" Daeho looked at the data crystal Sua had given him days ago. He had spent every spare moment studying it. He knew there were connections he hadn't found yet. Links between Hyanwu and Kyungmi, financial trails, communication records. Ji-won, you're the best data analyst I know, he said. Look at this crystal again. There has to be something we missed. Some connection that proves this is coordinated. Tae-sung, can you reach out to your contacts among the Veltaran warriors? Soldiers talk to each other. Maybe someone has seen something suspicious. They worked through the night. Ji-won's eyes were red from staring at data streams. Tae-sung made quiet calls through secure channels. Dae-ho coordinated everything, trying to piece together the puzzle. At dawn, Ji-won suddenly sat up straight. I found something. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, a company owned by Kyungmi received a massive payment from a coalition shell corporation. The same corporation that paid for the intelligence report Hyanwu presented. Can you trace where the money originally came from? Dae-ho asked. Ji-won's fingers flew across her console. Yes. It came from corporations that would profit if Veltara stays isolated. Companies that currently hold monopolies on certain biotechnology markets. If Veltara opens up and starts trading their superior technology, these companies lose billions. So this is about money, Tae-sung said. It's always about money or power, Dae-ho replied bitterly. Ji-won, can you prove the evidence presented was fabricated? I can show it was created recently, not months ago like it claims. I can prove the metadata has been altered. But I need access to coalition computer systems to fully verify it. Which we don't have, Tae-sung said. Dae-ho thought hard. Then he remembered something. Sua. She works in the palace information systems. Maybe she can help. But contacting Sua was risky. If they were being monitored, it could endanger her. Still, they had no choice. Dae-ho sent a carefully coded message through a back channel Sua had provided. 2 hours later, she responded. She could access the coalition systems remotely through diplomatic channels. It would take time, but she could verify what Ji-won suspected. By the end of the second day, they had their proof. The evidence against humanity was completely fabricated. It had been created just days before the ceremony. The metadata proved it. The financial connections proved it. The conspiracy was real, and they could prove it. Now they just needed to present this to the queen. But would she listen? Would she believe them? Or had the damage to their friendship been too great? Dae-ho requested an emergency audience. To his surprise, Ithara agreed to see him immediately. But when he entered her private chambers, he found her cold and distant. You have 48 hours, Captain, she said. Your time is up. What do you have to say? Dae-ho took a deep breath. This was it. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Your Majesty, I have proof that the evidence against humanity was fabricated. But more than that, I have proof of who did it and why. Please, let me present it to the full council, not in private but publicly. Let everyone see the truth. Ithara studied him for a long moment. If you are wrong, if this is another manipulation, you will be expelled from Veltaran space permanently. Earth's reputation will be destroyed. Do you understand? I understand, Dae-ho said. I'm asking you to trust me one more time. I know I have no right to ask that, but I'm asking anyway. The queen's bioluminescence pulsed in a pattern he'd never seen before. Finally, she nodded. The council convenes in 1 hour. You will present your evidence then. And, Captain, I hope you are right. For both our sakes. The council chamber was even more crowded than before. Every species representative wanted to see this. Would the humans prove their innocence? Or would this be their final humiliation before expulsion? Dae-ho stood at the center of the platform, aware of thousands of eyes watching him. Ji-won and Tae-sung stood nearby with their evidence. Sua stood in the shadows at the back, her presence unnoticed by most. Queen Ithara sat on her throne, her expression unreadable. Kyungmi and Hyunwoo stood together, confident. They believed they had won. Captain Dae-ho, Ithara said formally. You claim to have evidence proving your innocence. Present it now. Dae-ho activated the holographic display. The first image showed financial records. 3 weeks ago, Noble Kyungmi received a payment of 50 million coalition credits from a shell corporation. This same corporation paid coalition intelligence services to create the false evidence presented against humanity. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kyungmi's bioluminescence flared with anger. This is slander. I have no such connections. The financial records are public, Ji-won called out. Anyone can verify them? We have also traced the original source of the funds. They came from corporations that hold monopolies on biotechnology markets. Corporations that would lose billions if the Veltaran Empire began trading openly. Deho showed the next set of evidence. The documents claiming human ships stole Veltaran technology were created just 5 days before the ceremony. The metadata proves this. The footage shown was edited using coalition military-grade systems. Whoever made this evidence had access to high-level government resources. Lies, Hyunwoo shouted. This evidence came from verified intelligence sources. Did it? Taesung stepped forward. Or did it come from sources you control, Ambassador? We have communication records showing coordination between you and Noble Kyungmi, planning sessions, strategy meetings, all focused on one goal, destroying the alliance between humanity and the Veltaran Empire. The evidence kept coming. Dates, times, messages, financial transfers, everything woven together into an undeniable pattern. Conspiracy. Hyunwoo's face turned red with rage. You manipulated the queen with your pretty words. You made her weak. Someone needed to save her from her own emotions. The chamber erupted. Species representatives shouted at each other. Some defended Hyunwoo. Others condemned him. It was chaos. But Deho wasn't watching the crowd. He was watching Queen Ithara. She sat absolutely still, her bioluminescence cycling through rapid patterns, processing, thinking, deciding. Finally she stood. The chamber slowly fell silent. Ambassador Hyunwoo, she said, her voice deadly calm. You claim I am weak. You claim my emotions clouded my judgment. You claim I needed to be saved from myself. She descended the steps slowly, each word measured and precise. Let me tell you about weakness, Ambassador. Weakness is being so afraid of change that you sabotage progress. Weakness is lying and manipulating because you fear honest connection. Weakness is judging others by appearance because you lack the courage to look deeper. She stood directly in front of Hyunwoo now. Even though she was taller and more physically imposing, he seemed to shrink before her. Captain Deho taught me something you clearly never learned, Ithara continued. He taught me that showing vulnerability takes more strength than hiding behind walls. He taught me that opening yourself to others, risking pain, risking betrayal, that is true courage. You call me weak for trusting him? I call you weak for never learning to trust anyone. She turned to address the entire council. For 300 years, my people have hidden. We have isolated ourselves because we feared judgment. We feared that others would see us as ugly, as monsters, as unworthy. And do you know what? Some of you did. Some of you do. You call us the grotesque ones. You turn away from our appearance. You refuse to see past surface differences to what lies beneath. Ithara reached up and began removing her formal armor. Her advisors gasped. Queens did not do this. Not in public. Not before other species. But Ithara continued until she stood in simple clothes. Every scar visible, every asymmetry on full display. She was completely exposed. Vulnerable. This is what I am, she said, her voice carrying through the silent chamber. Scars and all. Asymmetry and all. By your standards, I am ugly. By your standards, I am frightening. But Captain Deho looked at me and saw something different. He saw strength in my scars. He saw honesty in my asymmetry. He saw beauty that reveals itself slowly to those patient enough to look. She gestured to the entire assembly. If you cannot look upon me as I truly am and see a being worthy of respect, then what is this coalition built on? If we can only accept those who look pleasing to us, then we are not a coalition at all. We are just the same prejudices wearing different faces. The chamber was absolutely silent. Beings from 100 worlds watched this powerful queen stand before them, completely vulnerable, challenging everything they believed about strength and weakness. I propose a choice, Ithara said. We can continue as we have been, judging by appearance, dividing by difference, building walls instead of bridges. Or we can choose a different path. We can choose to see past surface differences. We can choose to give others the patience to reveal themselves slowly. We can choose connection over isolation. She looked directly at Deho. Captain Deho and his people have shown me this different path. They have shown me that diversity is not something to fear. It is something to celebrate. Are they perfect? No, but they are trying. They are learning. They are growing. And that is what matters. Several species representatives stood, then more than dozens. They were applauding. Not everyone, not yet, but enough. Enough to matter. Hyunwoo looked around in disbelief. His conspiracy had failed. More than that, it had backfired spectacularly. The council immediately launched a formal investigation into his actions. Kyungmi was placed under arrest pending trial. But Ithara did not demand harsh punishment. Instead, she advocated for rehabilitation. They acted from fear, she said. Fear makes us do terrible things. But fear can be overcome. They should face consequences, yes, but they should also have a chance to learn, to grow, to change. This mercy shocked many, but it also impressed them. Here was a queen who could have destroyed her enemies but chose compassion instead. Over the following weeks, everything changed. The Veltaran Empire and Earth formalized their alliance. But more importantly, other species took notice. 3 isolationist civilizations reached out to the coalition, saying they too wanted to join. They had watched Queen Ithara stand vulnerable before the galaxy, and it had moved them. The council implemented new protocols against discrimination based on appearance. It wasn't perfect. Change never is. But it was a start. Daeho prepared to return to Earth. His mission had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest hopes. But saying goodbye to Ithara was harder than he expected. They met one last time in the Crystal Gardens. The plants glowed with soft purple light, responding to their bittersweet emotions. "You changed everything," Ithara said quietly. "Before you came, I believed what others told me. That I was ugly, that I was frightening, that I was unworthy of friendship. You taught me to see myself differently." "Your Majesty," Daeho replied. "You were always worthy. You were always strong. I just helped you see what was already there." "You taught me that vulnerability is not weakness," Ithara said. "When I stood before the council without my armor, I was terrified. But I did it anyway. And you know what I discovered? Being seen, truly seen, is terrifying. But it is also freeing." She reached into a pouch and pulled out a crystal. It glowed with soft rainbow colors. "This is from the Royal Gardens. It has bonded to your emotional signature. No matter where you go in the galaxy, it will glow when you think of our friendship. It has never been given to an outsider before." Daeho accepted it reverently. "Your Majesty, I don't have anything so grand. But I want to give you something too." He handed her a small wooden flute. "My grandfather made this during the hardest times of his life, when he had lost everything. He said that creating beauty from struggle was the only thing that kept him going. I want you to have it. To remember that even in difficult times we can create something beautiful." Ithara held the flute carefully, her bioluminescence pulsing with emotion. "I will treasure it. And I will practice. Perhaps one day I will play it well enough to honor your grandfather's memory." They stood together in silence for a while, watching the crystal plants glow around them. "This is not goodbye forever," Ithara finally said. "This is just the beginning. We will build something together, your people and mine, something that will change the galaxy." "We already have," Daeho replied. "We've proven that difference doesn't have to divide us. That patience and understanding can bridge any gap. That beauty truly does reveal itself slowly." 5 years later, Daeho returned to Veltara Prime for a historic summit. Queen Ithara now led a reformed coalition that valued diversity above conformity. The galaxy was more unified than it had been in centuries. Jiwan had accepted a permanent posting on Veltara Prime, helping bridge human and Veltaran cultures. Taesung trained Veltaran security forces in human techniques. Suwa served as ambassador to Earth, her courage recognized and honored.